Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host, a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestations of alcoholism. We share tools and offer hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is speaker meeting number 390. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Ashlee C. She's a first-time Rico 12 speaker, and her talk today is entitled Abandon, Not Surrender. And I look forward to hearing more about this message in a few minutes. But first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 does offer a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, visit Rico12.com. That's RECO12.com, or check the chat and show notes for links. We filled in a few more speakers for the rest of the year, but if you are looking ahead into the beginning of next year and have something you'd like to share with us, please send me an email, rico12pod@gmail.com. We'll get something lined up to have that happen. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors. This last week, a special thanks goes to Sean. I really appreciate your support. If you feel your higher power nudging you to make a contribution to Rico 12, the information on how to do that will be in the chat of the live meeting and in the show notes of the podcast. Your support, whether it be financially or by word of mouth, really does help make a difference in helping us share these messages of hope and recovery with others. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to welcome today's guest speaker, Ashlee C. Here is a little bit about her. Ashlee C. walked into her first 12-step room for food addiction recovery on February 9th of 2016, not knowing that God would use this program to teach her the difference between surrendering in defeat and abandoning herself fully to God. In her first year of abstinence, she lost 125 pounds and reached an ideal size. But after a relapse, her stretches of abstinence grew shorter and her relapses grew longer. On July 22nd of 2024, she finally abandoned sugar and flour as forms of ease and comfort, marking a major turning point. Then on May 1st of 2025, she turned more of her will over to the care of God. And on May 31st of 2025, she set aside her thinking about God, herself, and others, and went through the steps again with the purpose of carrying the message to another suffering addict. That deeper abandonment led her to acknowledge God in all her ways, not only in compulsive eating, but also in sex, love, fantasy, overspending, under-earning, and every area where spiritual principles now guide her daily life. Take it away, Ashlee. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Justin, for hosting Rico 12 and just all of the love and service that you provide. I'm so grateful to be here. My voice is starting to crack. That means a little bit of nervousness is setting in, but may I just set aside everything that I think I know about God, about myself in recovery, and about others, and just allow the mighty power at work to work through me to accomplish exceedingly abundantly, far more greater than I could ever ask or think. So a little bit about myself just to get started. I came into the rooms back in 2016 in February, and interesting enough, how I remember Googling, God help me stop eating so much. And that is how I was introduced to 12-step recovery for food addicts. And I went to a meeting. I was on my second lunch break at the time. So that just kind of shows you like what my food patterns look like and what my habits and symptoms look like. And I went to this meeting and I listened to a woman qualify, and she was sharing how she had went through the 12 steps and had a spiritual awakening. And I was just taken back by two things that I heard when I first came into the 12 step recovery rooms. Someone let me know that it wasn't what I was eating, it was what was eating me. And someone else shared with me that I'm as sick as my secrets. And I I worked the program. Let me say, I gave up flour and sugar in quantities, and I lost the weight. And I had abstinence, but I did not have the spiritual recovery that I get to experience today. And it reminds me about what the big book says on page 19, that the elimination of alcohol, drugs, compulsive overacts, right, is just the beginning. More importantly, it's how I practice these spiritual principles in my home, in my occupation, and all of my affairs. And I can't say I was really working the steps at that time. And I did, after losing the weight, getting to my right size body, when I had my relapse, and what I see as it was just a big misstep because I wasn't working the steps. I definitely wasn't working 12 steps. I was not doing the 12 step and carrying the message to another suffering addict. And because I wasn't growing along spiritual lines, I was just getting sicker. The big book is clear that this is, our behavior patterns vary, our symptoms vary, but this is a spiritual malady. And I did not know just how sick I I was. Fast forward, so I had the vanity part checked off, but that wasn't good enough. That wasn't substantial. So I came back because there were individuals in the room that I knew that had something very, very special. And now I know to define that as serenity and sanity. And that was ultimately what I wanted. This insane pattern, right? It's like what I've come to learn, that I had this belief system that I could get ease and comfort for things that were lesser than God. I did not go to the ultimate comforter. And I would succumb to the desire to get ease and comfort from all of these things because I couldn't deal with the emotions, the being tired, restless, irritable, discontented, anxious, and depressed. So I was looking for a solution. And it goes on to say in the big book that describes the person who like goes through these sprees over and over again, repeating it over and over again, and just the insanity that was taking place. And it says that it's not the only hope is that there has to be a psychic change. From my religious background, what is called, I have to be transformed by the renewing of my mind. That was my hope. My best thinking got me to 350 pounds at the age of 21 years old. My best thinking had me in serious debt. My best thinking had me in a toxic, abusive relationship. And I could go on to talk about how down in the gutter that my best thinking took me, but I'm grateful. I'm so grateful today for a greater understanding that is dependent on a trust in God, where I do not lean to my own understanding, but I acknowledge God in all my ways, and He directs my path. He has established these steps as my solution. So, in seeking serenity and sanity and knowing that it exists, I remember I had like this spiritual experience one day, and I was reading the Bible, and it was about the story of the lame man. And this lame man, Jesus healed him, and he picked up so the lame man is going through all of the things that's wrong with him. And Jesus says, "Do you want to be made whole?" And he's telling him all of the things that he tried, all his life circumstances. And Jesus responds with an action step. He says, "Pick up your mat and walk." And at the top of page 19 in the big book, it says that those who take this approach will pick up their mat and walk, or pick up their bed and walk. And I was like, okay, I don't need any more signs at this point. I want to walk. I want to be free. I want to be happy, joyous, and free. That's what this program had promised me. And I wanted to experience that. So, fast forward, I had a greater willingness at this point. I was humbled. I was willing to be honest. I was willing to be open minded. And I started taking the suggestions of a new sponsor. And I was also going through a big book intensive at the time. And part of this big book intensive, where we were going through the first 164 pages, was that we will often have assignments where we were listening to Rico 12. And that is how I discovered this podcast. And there were a couple things that stood out to me. And one of the things was, I think you mentioned, Justin, you talked about how in your assessment of reading We Agnostics, how you came to see how religiosity was a roadblock and a barrier. And I could definitely relate to that. And one of the profound things that I also heard from Nikki M, she mentioned that the word surrender wasn't in the big book. And I'm like, well, it's not in the big book. I sure use that word a lot. And it sure has been in all of like my 12-step workbook so far. And I also decided to look it up. And I found that the word surrender wasn't even in the Bible. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. But what is there is the word abandon. And I had this like divine insight. So, and I share this often with my sponsees now and fellows. See, I was surrendering. The act of surrender is I throw my hands up because I can't handle the weight of people, places, and things and circumstances. But the minute I felt strong enough, the minute I felt like I could carry the weight, I would pick it back up. And therein would lie every relapse that I had ever had. And it was no difference than someone with guns pointed at their head, dropping their weapon and surrender, but could easily go to court and say they weren't guilty. It was just a momentary act. But then I came to learn that I was being called to abandonment. And so I have this other experience where I don't know if you've ever donated your clothes outside of these bins in a pharmacy, but I go to donate my clothes one day and I thought I had donated the wrong thing. So I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm calling a number on the side. I'm like, is there a way someone can open up this lock? Can I get in here? And the woman says, when you've abandoned your articles of clothing, there's nothing we can do about it. They're no longer yours. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. He wanted me to abandon and really admit in step one that I was powerless, that my life had become unmanageable, which then propelled me to a place where I could actually take step two, to come to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. The same consciousness that had got me into the troubles that I was experiencing and my addiction was not going to be the same consciousness that was going to be able to solve my problem. And then came this radical solution of really taking a step three. So, decided to start listening to Noodling Out with Nikki. And through that program, I got a sponsor. And of course, the solution was, hey, let me take you through this workbook by Cameron F. I'm going to take you through these steps quickly so you can apply it. And I was told to just trust that it would work if I worked it. And as I went through like the log and loser list in step one, I remember seeing all of the things that I had tried, yet all of the things that I had lost. It was insufficient to keep me permanently, it failed to keep me permanently abstinent. And one of those things was church and prayer. And I love that in parentheses it said faith without works was dead. See, the big book to me, it's nothing new under the sun. It's just ancient information, right? It stands the test of time. So I'm not a test dummy. It's tried and true. But I was just hearing it, but I was not doing it. I was not working it. It was the same thing for me showing up to meetings and expecting something to happen by osmosis. It wasn't going to do that until I took some actionable steps, until I abandoned my way of thinking, leaning not to my own understanding. So it leads me, my sponsor is making it really clear by the time we got to step 3 that it was time to turn my will. That was my thoughts. That was my thinking, my life. That was my actions over to the care of God. And in doing that, which was radical for me, and I'm going to say why it was so radical, right? This was abandoning self-reliance. This was abandoning human aid. And this was really having a dependence on a power greater than me, who I call God, the God of the Bible, who was the one who could actually manage my life and lead me out of the unmanageability. So I needed to get right with myself, or I needed to do this self-diagnosis. I needed to get right with God so I could then get right with other people. And one of the other important things that I think is a big part of my story, I was so caught up on terminology. That was such an intellectual barrier and blockage for me. I didn't like the word alcoholic. I didn't like the word addict. I didn't like disease. I didn't like sick. And here's the thing, if you don't think you're sick, you cannot take advantage of the great physician. I did not have the desperation of a drowning man and woman. But when I got desperate enough, and when I was able to see just how sick I was willing. And I love the analogy that we have to be as desperate as a drowning man or woman. If I'm drowning, I'm not asking somebody to come with a different life rafter, come with a boat, come with a helicopter. I'm helping them help me at that point. I recognize that I'm at the end. I can't save myself. And there's so much beauty and hope in that. So as I was talking about just abandoning my thoughts, abandoning this belief, because someone else had told me that I only get to experience the God I understand. So it made sense that I worship food, because that was the thing that I understood to bring me ease and comfort. But it was so fleeting. And I require so much. And I would say, like, as I often sometimes just like read through We Agnostics, it is like my humble reminder to grow along spiritual lines. And I get to also grow in an understanding of God and an understanding of this program and the 12 steps as I work with other suffering addicts. See, I was so self-centered. Oh my gosh. I was so sensitive to my suffering. But I saw how these character defects, I could go to moving into what was once a liability, my sensitivity to my selfishness and my self-centeredness and my so-called suffering that I had caused on my own. to now be sensitive to other people's suffering, and how God was able to use that as an asset for me to care for other people. I tell people I have all of these like miracles that I could go on and on about how I casted my cares to God. I took care of what He told me to take care of, and how everything gets taken care of from there. That was not the way that my life was going. And I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place right now. But I thinking along the lines of even just like my where I have failed, and where I claim to have, like, the big book says it like this, that I was the type that had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but I didn't live up to them. And I really didn't know how to. I was told that I could only take step one perfectly. And after that, I needed power. I needed power to work all of these other things out. I needed a conscious contact with God. Leaning not to my own understanding. How do I work that out in action? Is I pause, I meditate. I used to have some of the most shallow prayers because I didn't want to do work. My biggest character defects was sloth and laziness. So I would pray prayers like, God, wake me up skinny. Let me find a duffel bag full of money. Let me find a perfect mate that was going to love me and my imperfections, because I didn't want to do any work. But now, today, I pray prayers starting my morning, asking God to be of maximum usefulness. That is like a dynamic shift. Now I'm literally saying, God, give me work. But it's because I have an understanding now that I don't have to do the work on my own. God is doing for me what I cannot do for myself. I have been amazed before I'm halfway through. I do my little part. I go to any lengths now to make an amends. I remember even as I was going through like making financial amends, and I was told that financially I could not afford the car that I had. And in giving that up, it meant that I was going to be carless. So I was like, that's idiotic. Here they go. You know, I'm like, wait, I'm leaning along the lines like this might be a car. This is crazy talk. But I was willing to trust it because my best thinking had actually had me in a car that I could no longer afford. And I gave up that car. Well, what do you know? Shortly soon after, I get a car. Then I had to give up that car like a few months later. But I was willing. I gave up that car. And what do you know? I'm back in a luxury car. I don't know how all of this works. It is divinely inspired, it is rooted in wisdom. I love the work that I get to do, that I got to do in step 4. That I got to see that at the root of all of my resentments, at all of my heartache, all of my harm, was fear. I didn't trust God to give me what I wanted. I didn't trust the God of my understanding to be a good enough God. So I played God. And in playing God, I became the judge and the jury. That's where all of the resentments came from. But because I'm not equipped to be anybody's higher power, I caused a lot of harm along the way. Self-harm. I was like the tornado that the big book talks about, causing a lot of destruction. And today I recognize that I don't have to play God. I don't have to be somebody's savior. I just carry the message. I tell people that, hey, this was the steps that woke me up. I was asleep. I was dying. I had tried a lot of things and the loss was just piling up. And that's one thing about food, I'll say. I came to learn that I only went to the food because of some of the other symptoms that was really at the heart of the matter.
5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Um, and so because of that, I guess I'll just share that part that I could eat sugar and flour all day, and I wasn't immediately determined to be pre diabetic. I wasn't immediately determined to be diabetic from there. I wasn't losing limbs. Those are things that happen a little bit slower in comparison to someone who may overdose from a drug or find themselves in prison because they were drunk or had a DUI. But I realized that the mental insanity was the same. And I got to see just how cunning and baffling and powerful this disease is. I suffer from alcoholism. So this solution works. I sponsor people who are atheists, agnostics, religionists, who are in many multiple different afflictions and addictions. And the solution has been the same. And it has been rooted in not surrendering, but abandoning belief systems that just did not work. All right. I guess I will just end there. Thank you for letting me share.
Ashlee, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your share, and I've got a ton of notes here with questions to ask. I know we've got at least one question so far from our live audience. A reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Ashlee, put it in the chat. If you want to remain anonymous, if you don't want me to read your first name, send me a direct message in the chat with your question, or just write anonymous, please, at the beginning. But we're going to start off with one that came in from Lynette. Lynette says, thank you, Ashlee, for your share. If you're sponsoring, how do you go about sharing and explaining this to your sponsees regarding surrender versus abandonment? How do you have that conversation? Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
So I definitely use the analogies that were revealed to me, as far as it's just like notion of just like stopping your tracks and just drop it. No, we're called to a program of action first and foremost. So we're never not doing anything, and really explaining that it is not this act of just like handing it over. But more so, again, abandoning, really recognizing, like in step one, that is an abandonment. That is if you perfectly take step one, you're recognizing that you're powerless, that your life is unmanageable, that there is nothing else left to try. There is nothing else left to do. And that will propel that person to, or at least it propelled me to step two. That there has to be, like, came to believe, meaning that there is this higher belief system out there. And I think as I go through the log list, with the log and loser list, which that I'm referring to a log and loser list that is actually in the workbook from Cameron F. And that's how I take people personally through the 12 steps quickly, so that with this main thing in mind, that they can carry the message. By the time I've gone through that log and loser list, and if they have truly been convinced, right? They really don't have any hope or faith left in their own belief system at that point. So it's nothing for them to actually go back. It's really just at this point, moving forward and working the rest of the steps on a daily basis in all of their affairs.
Yeah, thank you, Ashlee. And I put a link to the workbook, the workshop that you referenced there with Cameron, in the chat. It will also be in the show notes of the podcast in case you're curious. And I think the workshop is it's not this Sunday. I think it's next Sunday, the last Sunday of each month. So if you're out there and you want to get in on that workshop, it's powerful. So all right. So Ashlee, it sounds
Can
like
I
you
say
and I,
one thing really quick?
please do.
I wanted to say that it's on page 58. I just thought about this. It says that we have to abandon old ideals. The results are nil until we let go absolutely. And that is one of the things that I definitely share with those who I'm carrying the message to, that that's the approach, to abandon old ideas.
Yeah. And I think it's such a powerful concept that you're sharing here with us, because I loved your analogy when you in your share. When I surrender, I put my hands up, I drop whatever it is there, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go back and pick it up. I loved how you said, one day I may feel like, oh, I'm strong enough, I can go do that. Or maybe even 10 minutes later, I'm strong enough, I can go pick that up. Um, talk to us a little bit more about the difference between that surrender, I give up, and abandon, I'm out of here. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I use the analogy of like somebody surrendering and dropping their weapon. Abandonment is leaving the battlefield. That's how I see it. We cease fighting people. We cease fighting places. We cease fighting alcohol. We cease fighting sex, love, drugs, food, whatever it may be. I was fighting. Now, there was beauty in that fighting. It made me so tired that I got desperate enough. But the big book is really clear that I don't have to fight anymore. The solution is simple. Now, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's simple. It doesn't require me having this approach that I need a weapon, because the disease is in my mind. It is a spiritual malady. And speaking of, I guess, surrender, when I think about it, I hear often in the rooms where people say, I gave it to God, but I took it back. And I'm only using that voice because that's my voice. That's how I sounded when I said it, right? Like I gave it to God, but then I took it back. I realized that if I could take something back from God, then I needed a new understanding of God. That meant that I was more powerful than my God. So that wasn't a power that was greater than myself. That's what surrender looks like. You feel like you have this option to go back and forth. Or I felt like I had that option to go back and forth. Because again, if you put it down, you can pick it back up. As opposed to if you abandon something. That is a totally different thought. And one thing I've come to find, that the word choices in this big book are not coincidental. This was not accidental. This was actually well thought through. At first, what does it say? It may seem like a flimsy read, but then the more I read it, I couldn't deny it. Honestly, in reading the big book, I got to see where religious people had it right. I was doing all of these things in my own will and my own might. And I know I came to learn that self will ran riot. It didn't solve my problems at all. And if I quote unquote have a battlefield, it's me pausing throughout the day. It's me meditating. It's me waiting for God to tell me the next right thing to do, to intuitively find out how to handle life on life's terms. It's me actually doing the things I don't want to do. It's admitting promptly when I'm wrong. Those are the things that I didn't do. And I can easily tell the difference in the voices of my voice and God's voice now. God's voice doesn't contradict itself. My voice is so unreliable. It changes based off of emotions. And that's what reflected in my surrender, not quote unquote. That's what reflected in my surrender. Oh, I've been abstinent long enough today. I can handle it. Where the big book tells me that I'm like a person who's lost their leg and will never get it back. I don't grow it back. I had to abandon this thought process that what had defeated me 1,000 times over, I would never have enough strength on my own to be able to tame it or control it.
No, this is good. Thank you so much, Ashlee. I have a comment that came in from our live audience. This is from Joanne. As a tried and true Al-Anon, I love, love, love replacing surrender with abandon. So powerful. Thank you. Thank you, Ashlee, for that. You mentioned something there just in that last comment that you were making, the answer to that question. You know, I've been abstinent long enough today, so I can make some choices on my own. And early in your share, you said, you know, I had abstinence, but I did not have the spiritual solution, the recovery. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between abstinence and spiritual recovery, and how you know you're in the different places, if you're in abstinence and hanging on, or if you're in spiritual recovery. How do you recognize that?
First and foremost, I would say there's hope, there's surrender. There is evidence of spiritual transformation that I did not have when I just had abstinence. I was still like a nagger. I was still negative. I still had just as many resentments as I had, even though I had a right sized body. But spiritual transformation, that's when my code is patience, loving, and tolerance. I didn't have that with just being abstinent. I didn't have a consideration of other people. I know many people who are abstinent, or I can just say for me, I was abstinent and I had no desire to help anybody else. But that was because I really wasn't experiencing this good news. I wasn't experiencing the good fruit that comes as a result of working this program. That's why I was in no rush to share it, because I was still dying. I was still experiencing the anguish, the sorrow, and the turmoil. As opposed to now, I'm like all of those other people who I thought was just so crazy. I can't help but to share it. I take my daughter through step 10. I work with my family. They don't know they're working the steps, but it's a tried and true method. Why wouldn't I? So when my daughter says, hey, I don't like my teacher and I didn't get to do recess today, I'm like, tell me about it. Short, of course. And then I'm like, well, what was your part in it? And she'll tell me, you know, I was over talking. I wasn't considerate of other people. I was irresponsible. And I'm like, well, where would God have you to be? And then she said, patient, loving. She'll go through some of the fruits of the Spirit according to the Bible, and self control. And then she already knows at this point, God, remove my selfishness and help me to be more loving. And then I just remind her, you're not all bad, right? We all, men and women, inside all men, women, and children is the image of God. And the way I get to prove that is that I go out and then I help another person and she helps another person. And I ask her, like, hey, is there anybody you need to apologize? Yeah, to my teacher and my friend who I distracted, who was still taking her tests. Because this spills over in all of my affairs, that's how I know I'm experiencing a spiritual transformation. It's not compartmentalized anymore. That's how I get to come that and learn all of the other afflictions and addictions that I was dealing with. Because I was abstinent in one area, but I just swapped it out for something else. And when I was sponsoring, even when I was abstinent before, I just had a codependent relationship with my sponsees. I was trying to be their higher power. Now, I'm insufficient as a higher power. I'm nobody's higher power, but I can guide you too. I can guide you through these spiritual principles. I can encourage you to have a conscious contact with God and then to go out and carry this message as well. Because I deal with a lot of compulsive overeaters, I typically use this analogy. So for the ones who will tell me, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm not really a people person, I don't know about reaching out to strangers. I said, I'm 100% sure that you have been an unpaid ambassador before for a good meal that you had at a restaurant. It was so good that you wanted to post it on social media or you wanted to share it with family and friends. They didn't ask you. And for the individuals that aren't quick to share it, it means that they haven't got to experience this spiritual transformation. I don't know anyone who has that withholds sharing it with another person because they also know freely they receive, freely they give. They can't keep it if they don't give it away. Love is not love until you've given it away.
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform. That's such a powerful phrase. Love is not love until you've given it away. I love that. Ashlee, earlier in your talk, and this is something that you and I share, it sounds like, you said religiosity was a roadblock to this process of abandonment. And my personal experience was I had to get to the point where I was willing to give up all of that if that's what God guided me to do. Now, the path that brought me back to my faith and made me even, I believe, a better practitioner than I ever was when I was trying to, keep everything right online. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of your faith walk, your walk with your faith practice through this abandoning process.
So it's very similar to yours. I had to abandon it. And now I can actually look. I went to church, but I wasn't the church. Like, not in the sense that I was supposed to be. I wasn't practicing. I wasn't loving. I wasn't kind. I wasn't joyous. I wasn't peaceful. Goodness and mercy, I did not have a trail following. That was not the trail following behind me at all. And like I was saying in the log and loser list, when it talks about church and when it talks about prayer, those things aren't bad. But it makes it really clear The big book echoes the Bible when it says that faith without works is dead. I was a hearer, but I was not a doer of what I was hearing. I was not hiding it in my heart, so I wasn't practicing it wherever I went. And I often tell, since I do work with a lot of religious believers across various different denominations, I share how there should be evidence. Like, I know for me, I did a lot of talking. I don't have to talk as much today. I work a program that makes me attractive. People can feel the serenity. They can see the sanity. They get to witness the wisdom that I get to walk in now. And in abandoning kind of this mediocre thing, and I'm not going to say that everything was no, God makes no mistakes and everything was used. The place where I was causing harm, which was in my home and my community, thanks to these steps where my character defects have ran havoc, I now get to go back in those same places, in those same communities, and they get to experience my spiritual assets. That is how I get to live out this amends.
Actually, I love that quote. I work a program that makes me attractive. And as you said that, I was just like, oh my gosh, yes, she does. What an amazing thing. I want what you have. And I'm so grateful for your share here. I've got other questions here for you. And a reminder to our live audience, if you have a question, please type it in the chat. You said that in your share, I worshipped food, and that can be changed to anything. I worshipped alcohol. I worshipped gambling. I worshipped sex. I worshipped whatever it may be. Talk a little bit about that. How come you use the word worshipped in that sense?
So I often will share that I didn't have a weight issue. I had a worship issue. It's whatever thing that I ran to that I made my God. I overindulged. I spent money. I made great sacrifices for food. I was willing to go to any length for food. That's how I knew it was it was something that I worship. Whatever I'm willing to go to any great lengths to. My family didn't matter. My job didn't matter. I mentioned earlier that I was like on my second lunch break, but then couldn't understand why my performance evaluations looked the way they did. Just pure insanity. I was so irresponsible because I was it says in the Bible that you can't be double-minded. You serve one master or the other. We're all worshiping something at any given time. Now, today, thankfully, I worship a God and have a God that has great intentions, not just for me, but for all people. So everyone gets to benefit in this act of worship, this act of sacrificial worship, my lifestyle. I worked certain disciplines. I came in here so undisciplined, and I needed to be disciplined by a loving God. And that, because of what has been given to me, that is the thing that propels me to go to any length. Again, to your point, based off of the question, anything can be worshiped. It can be emotions can be worshiped. I hear people claim emotions, and I used to do the same. My anxiety, my depression. It was something I identified with. It's something I held on to. I kept hold of it. I didn't know it was my only normal way of life. It was my being, in a sense. But today, I practice acceptance and I allow God. I There's this concept in the big book that says we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. I guess that came up because I used to say progress over perfection. And that's exactly what I was doing. It was my way of saying, oh, I'm trying to do this. But spiritual progress over spiritual perfection is totally different. It means that I don't pick up anything. I remain, I allow the spirit to do a perfecting work in me. That is the only way I get to grow in any type of perfection. My faith is being perfected. My courage is being perfected. My characteristics are being perfected. As I continue not to lean to my own understanding and practice these spiritual principles in all my affairs, working a program when I least want to work it, being available to other people, and also confessing and reaching out to other people when I need to confess.
This is so powerful, Ashlee. I do want to ask you, about this worship thing, go a little bit deeper into that. When is a time when you were living in this abandoned lifestyle that maybe a light was shined on something else that you were like, oh no, that's my precious, I don't want to give that up, and you went through the process of giving that up or not? Tell us about that in your life.
Um, Let me think for just a second. As I like just pause to really think a little bit more about this act of worship, it is the thing that I hold near and dear. It is the thing that I have made the main point. It is the thing that is at the heart of all I do. And this is really different because when you come into recovery, it tells you what the main point is. It gives you a job description. It tells you, yeah, as I go, it tells really clear, hey, you're going to go through all of this so that you can carry the message and help somebody else. Like that is how I have a pure heart. I haven't really sat with this that long. It's just something that has definitely been revealed to me. So I can really just say that worship, the word that just came to mind, it's the thing that I align with. That is my beacon. That is my compass. And today I have a different guiding beacon.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead. Beautiful. And I love this. I love this walkthrough on this. And as one of our attendees here, Michael, says, I've heard some things that I've never heard before. So you're sharing some things from a different perspective for me, and at least for Michael. And I really love getting additional light. And that's one of the reasons I love doing this, is getting people from so many different backgrounds and everything and seeing it from a different perspective. I think it's beautiful. Another comment from Cheryl. Worship, 100%. I don't just seek God, I worship God. They're amazing. How can I not? Um, Good. Thank you for that.
And I want to
So
just add that
please
I
do.
guess to that point, no matter what the religious belief may be, even if you choose and you say that you don't subscribe to any like organized religion, if you worship something, it shows up in your actions. There is proof to what is like governing you. Now, for me, it was evident that food governed me because of not only what the scale said, but it was reflected, right? Externally, you could see it. It's no different than any alcoholic behavior. You can see that there is this, it is evidence of what is most important to them. There is action behind it. It is what they do from at the very thing. It is what they do when they first wake up in the morning, throughout the day, tonight. And now that I worship a loving, a caring God that tells me to grow, that I need to grow along spiritual lines, my ACT, my actions, my act of worship, it is reflected in how I live out these steps on a daily basis throughout the day. I pause and I say, God, help me accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things that I can and the wisdom to know the difference.
This has been an amazing conversation. Before we close down, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Um, Thy will be done, not my will. I have every now and then I'll take a moment to reflect on just what my life has looked like, praying prayers, step 3 prayers, and praying these prayers that really reflect thy will be done, not my will be done. And I can say that obviously thy will, God's will, is so much better than my will that I continue on this track. I continue on this journey. It has been well worth it to not lean to my own understanding. I have a relationship that reflects me not leaning to my own understanding, which is beautiful today. I have a home life. I have peace in every situation and circumstances. It doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen. It does. But it has not shaken. It doesn't have to shake me having joy. It doesn't have to shake me being free. It doesn't have to shake this happiness and this sanity and surrender and serenity that I have. So yeah, I will say I welcome others who have had this experience where they know where self-will has got them to try out where God's will take them if they abandon themselves.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we did have one last quick question coming from the live audience. Let's just do this real quick if you don't mind. How do I become very clear about my defects so I can ask God to remove them? So how do you go about becoming very clear about those defects, Ashlee?
So I I have done a step 4. I do step 10s, but I think it's important to not go through these steps alone. I tell my sponsees, you're not even equipped to do a perfect step 4. You need to when you get to step 5 and you do step 5 with God and with another human being, collectively together. This is a we program. And also, I will say, so not only did I learn a lot of my causes and conditions and my character defects, you know, doing a step 5 with God and my sponsor, but I also learned more and more about other character defects I have because I accept other people's step 5. And as they share, I have yet to have taken somebody's step 5 where it didn't result in me going to my sponsor and saying, "Hey, I just heard something. I think I do this too." I need to now ask God to remove that character defect and strengthen me with a character asset. This again, it's not like this just random thing. Go work with another suffering addict. The big book is clear. It actually helps you more than it helps them. I hope everyone gets something out of it when I take them through the steps, but I've never taken somebody through the steps and it was not beneficial to me.
I agree. Beautiful share. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Ashlee. For anybody who would like to connect with Ashlee, are you okay if they email me and I connect them with you that way, Ashlee? Okay,
Sure
so send an email to rico12pod@gmail.com and I can get you connected with Ashlee. Come back next week for another great speaker and Q&A session. Next week we have Eva J., who's another first-time Rico 12 speaker, and we've just had this great run of amazing speakers over the last while, and I'm just so grateful for that. So stay updated. Join us on WhatsApp, on our email list. If you're not yet subscribed, email me at rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you on the email list. Now let's launch out of here with the set-aside prayer that Ashlee's going to say for us.
God, help us set aside everything we think we know about you, everything we think we know about ourselves in recovery, everything we think we know about others, that we may have an open mind and a new experience with you, with ourselves as individuals, and with others. Amen.
Amen. Remember, everybody, there's one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low. But now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.